My name is Sean Bergen, and I'm a member of the CompSysNet education team. In this video, we'll discuss the importance of version control for your software. As I learned to program in NetLogo, I saved multiple versions of files so that if I made a mistake, I could return to a previous version. I quickly devised what I believed to be an ingenious system. I would incrementally add numbers to the ends of my model names. Using this system, I was able to go back to previous versions of my model, and I was able to identify older and newer versions. But that was about it. Very quickly, I found that I didn't know which changes were made in which versions, and that my new collaborators had their own numbering systems. Suddenly, instead of version 1, there was a version 1A and a version 1C, and then a slightly newer version 1B. This is an actual screenshot of a folder that I shared with researchers. Changes became increasingly complicated because we were both using Dropbox and working at different times of day. Using numbers usually allows you to separate old from new code, and having a time series library of your code is helpful. But just using file names creates two main issues. First, how do you identify changes? Software development is often seen as a linear development from good software to even better software. In fact, there are often many minor changes in between versions. Those versions might have other connected versions. Software can be modified for new purposes or might be modified for a different platform. And sometimes what you would intended to be a separate version of a piece of software has to be added back into your original version. How do you work with team members that are modifying the same or related portions of code? You may have come across issues related to versioning in your own research, and if you haven't yet, you will soon. Thankfully, there are a number of tools that can take care of version control for you. Before we go into detail on the most popular tool of these tools, Git, I will reveal some of the general benefits of using version control, and hopefully convince you why it's important to move beyond simple naming conventions. If you have had some programming experience, you will know that you don't always know when you've made a mistake in your code. You might add a new procedure or variable, think to yourself, well, the code editor says the code is okay, so it must be okay. But several weeks later, you found that there's an error in your code. Version control won't fix that error, but it can help you return to a version of your code that doesn't have the newly added error. Version control can also allow you the freedom to experiment. You can add new features or try new ways to improve your model or code, and you'll still be able to get back what you had before. Each time you commit a new version of your software, you choose which files you want to version, you record notes on what you changed and why, and the system records who made the changes and when. Personally, I avoided using version software because I didn't want unfinished code to be publicly available. But you don't need to make your repositories public. You can begin a model and leave it unfinished for months. That's okay. Models that are still under active development and not ready to be public still benefit from being versioned and tracked in a version control system. One of the largest benefits of version control systems is that they allow you to collaborate with others on your model in a transparent and scalable way. Version control systems provide other researchers access to the most current version of a model and allow them to easily view a transparent record of the changes that have been made. Hosted version control systems like GitHub let you track issues that need to be addressed as well. Version control systems also allow you to identify where and when errors were introduced. Although you may be developing a model on your own now, you may involve other researchers in the future. You may build upon a model with other researchers as part of a new grant. You may stop development of a model and pass the torch to someone else. You may return to a model after 5 years because your new grad student wants to add a new feature. You might not have a team now, but you might find yourself as part of one in the future. Finally, the most important thing a version control system can do for you is keep track of multiple versions of software. You might not realize it now, but you will have multiple distinct versions of your model or software. Versions can be associated with a specific publication. Versions might include a new feature down the road which you don't foresee at this moment. And versions that have been modified to work with new software are just as important to keep track of. Ultimately, version control software helps you track stable versions and development versions of your software so that you and your team can continue to develop new features and provide others with your software in the future. In the next module, we will discuss the importance of archiving your code.